Buying a mountain bike has never been so complicated, especially with e-bikes now thrown into the mix. Now, it's come to our attention recently that whilst people have accepted e-mountain bikes, they're still faced with the decision of having to buy either a mountain bike or an e-mountain bike. Yeah, it's a tough decision, it's a lot of money, and there are simply so many subplots to the story. Yes, buying a mountain bike is possibly one of the toughest two-wheel decisions many people will ever have to make. And watching from the sidelines, we see many people trying out an e-mountain bike, falling in love with it before returning home to ponder, fight their emotions, and then simply return to mountain biking. They seem to be gripped with some kind of anxiety about going electric. But what exactly is going through people's heads? What are their thought processes? I'm now joined by Chris Jones, a friend and also a former colleague, who's actually in that very situation right now. Does he buy an e-mountain bike or does he buy a mountain bike? Chris, first of all, talk us through what your job is. You're involved in mountain biking.
Yes, well, as you know, designer for years. I still run a graphic design company with my wife, but yeah, the rest of the time is riding bikes, pretty much.
But, you know...
Riding bikes, going to work.
But you're involved in, was it Hurly-Burly?
Hurly-Burly, Misspent Summers, Hurly-Burly, the World Stage, yeah, print publications still, short, mountain bike publications.
What kind of riding do you do, Chris?
Local stuff, really, mainly Forest of Dean. I don't really stray far out of the area, so it's, local built trails. Before lockdown, bigger days, Brecon Beacons, places like that, but certainly not really bike park stuff.
So what bikes have you had up until now?
So yeah, 8 years ago, I think it was when I started, was the Trek Fuel EX 9.8 26 in the early day, 2012 I think that was, and then I moved on to Canyon Spectral AL 29, yeah. And then I had a Kona Process 111 short travel bike. Thinking of upgrading from the Kona anyway. That's my my favourite bike. I do enjoy that bike, but
it's limited, yeah. 111mm travel.
Yeah, exactly. And I do struggle a bit on the rougher stuff. So yeah, I've been looking around.
What are your options?
Well, I've been thinking possibly electric, the Levo SL, and also I've been looking at Geometron, and I've got a few other thoughts as well. But the thing is, I think I've been comparing cats with dogs. Well, I think they're two different things, aren't they? A Geometron comparing to the SL, I don't know. I
want to say one thing. Now, I actually lent you the Levo SL in a size extra large, which was your correct size. Yeah. And you came back to me and you said, yes, this is the best bike I've ever ridden, correct?
Yeah, I did.
And then following that, you said to me, where do I sign? Is that correct? Yeah, I did say that. And then I guess you went to try another bike, which was the Geometron.
Yeah.
Now, what led you to that?
Well, they're local boys. They build these things. In fact, my office is right next door to theirs, so it just made sense that I should try one of these bikes. I know a bit about them anyway, yeah. And it made sense to give it a go. So I have demoed one now for a few days.
And what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Best bike I've ever ridden. But it is. But the thing is, you see, I think for what I was riding before, a 2012 bike, a 2013 bike, the Kona was a 2016 bike. Yeah. I think, I've just stepped off of I don't know what you want to. I'm comparing it to cars, some sort of 1990s car stepping into a 2020s, I don't know, Audi or something. All these, everything's changed, doesn't it, a lot in the last 5 or 6 years with geometry and suspension and everything.
What are you looking for in a bike? Is it suspension travel? Is it visual? Is it the value for money, or is it reliability? What are you looking for in a mountain bike?
All of those things, all in one, all of it. Yeah, I mean, you know, the geometry, fantastic on the downs and the climbs. But the SL, you know, having that motor was brilliant. You know, being able to do 5 laps instead of my usual 3 maybe on a quick out the door in the morning before going to work.
To quote you in a text message you sent to me, yeah. I'm not ready for an e-bike. What if it goes wrong?
Yeah. Well, that was my concern. Was, I don't know. I like to be pretty self-reliant in most areas in my life. You know, self-sustainable. And I don't know. I was just a bit concerned about the motor. You know, the technology, the battery, and I thought, you know, if it goes wrong, I'm going to have to take it back to the shop. And I don't know, to me that felt a little bit like having to go to the shop to get my puncture fixed, which, you know, just wouldn't do. I'm a bit concerned about relying upon someone else. But then, I must admit, my thought was, well, you know, if I need my shock servicing, I currently don't have the skills to do that at the moment. I could learn, but I don't know at the moment. So I'd have to take the bike, you know, to a suspension workshop to have it tuned or sorted or whatever. So then I thought, well, same difference, isn't it, really?
To quote you on different things, another quote I had off you was something is holding me back from going electrified. I don't know what it is.
Maybe it's, yeah. I'm not used to the weight of these things. I come from a BMX racing background, you know. I mean, we're talking a long time ago now, but most of the bikes I've ridden so far have been pretty light. The Kona and the Spectral, you know, they're not heavy bikes. And then that's been my concern is with the electric bikes, the weight of them. And
ultimately, it seems you've got to make a decision. Are you going to go for an e-bike or are you going to go for a?
Well, to be honest, I mean, it changes every day. You know, every day I get on that bike, yeah, it's that one. I get on this, it's that one. Yeah, every bike I ride is good.
Can I ask you about the friends you ride with?
That's the thing as well, isn't it? Yeah. Who do you ride with? You've got to ask yourself that, haven't you? Who do you ride with? What have they got? Most of my mates don't have electric bikes, so.
Some of your mates are very fit though as well, which maybe would means you'd actually go riding with them for longer.
Yeah. I mean, I have to admit, I get a little left behind at times. You know, those longer rides, you know, Brecon Beacons, quite often find myself, you know, out the back. And it would be good just to, you know, stick it in trail eco. And, you know, at the end of that 25-mile ride, just to be, you know, up the front with them.
And what about the peer? Is there any peer pressure involved in?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we all know there, isn't there? Oh, electric bikes, you know. Well, I mean, yeah, even me, you know, I've always been a bit like, oh, I don't need an electric bike. And, you know, when I've been raving on about this SL, I've had mates send pictures of little mobility scooters to me. And it's tough. It is, because everyone's so opinionated about it. But they are, you know, they are. And even myself included.
Well, it seems to me that the story will continue of the search for the ultimate mountain bike from Chris Jones. Okay, calling in Chris from the Somerset shed. You there, Chris?
I'm receiving you, Steve, loud and clear in the shed.
Hey, Chris, let's talk about bikes. Now, I see so many people fighting with themselves about buying their first e-mountain bike. You know, they go and try them, they love it, they've got some sort of demon in their head which is fighting them against buying it. And you know, we've seen it with like the likes of when we went from vinyl to digital, or from guitars to electric guitars. I mean, what is it with people, do you think? Is it money? I mean, money doesn't come into the equation, because if you think about it, an e-mountain bike, you get, you know, pound for pound, you get a motor, you get a battery, you get a display, you get the software. And you know, the mountain bike industry, as we know, has been hung up about lightweight components for decades, so those are expensive as well. What is it? Is it worry about repair, maintenance? What is it?
Possibly maintenance, but you know, I think a people's worry is that the motor or the battery is going to let them down, you know, because that's the big difference from a normal bike. But to be fair, you know, touch wood, I've never had any problems with any motors or batteries so far. And component wise, well, yeah, you might get a little bit more wear on the drivetrain and things like that. But I remember on a standard mountain bike, you had to replace the bottom bracket every few months. You're never going to be doing that on a mountain bike, are you?
I mean, if you think about it, right, an e-bike motor is no more complicated than a suspension fork or a shock absorber, correct?
Definitely, and I think a suspension fork or shock absorber probably needs more maintenance than an e-bike motor, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, e-bike motor, what's it good for? 1,000 charges, that's right, isn't it?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, thousands of miles you're going to get out of that before it even needs to be opened or serviced. So yeah, way less than suspension.
So when it comes to repair and maintenance, you're probably going to be doing that more to a mountain bike than an e-mountain bike. Although, you know, as we discussed, you know, the high usage, the increased torque through the chain and cassette is probably going to result in higher wear there. I want to talk about riding with friends. Now, I had a chat with Chris Jones earlier on in the week. Now, one of his concerns was the fact that you know, lots of his friends don't have e-bikes. But on the other hand, he was saying to me that when he goes out for a ride on a mountain bike with fit riders who are maybe like 60 kilos and he's like 80 kilos, he can go and do maybe 4 or 5 downhill runs, whereas the lighter rider can do, you know, 7 or 8 runs. So he actually has to go home. So what he loved about the Levo SL was the fact that he could do the 4 or 5 runs and can, you know, extend his ride because, you know, he can use the motor. So I think the whole thing about riding with friends doesn't really add up because, you know, we've done it with in a video previously as well, haven't we? But the whole thing about fitness, that doesn't stack up either, right?
No, definitely. I think fitness with an e-bike, I think with a normal mountain bike, that becomes quite a barrier straight away is the fitness side of it. A lot of people think, yeah, I'll go buy a mountain bike, go out riding. Then they go out riding and experience it and they realise their fitness isn't up to speed and they put it in the shed and it's forgotten about. And I think with an e-bike, you buy that bike and yeah, you might ride at a higher assist for those first few rides, get fitness in. Then as you get fitter, you can turn that down and improve it all the way. And I think standard mountain bike is going to be forgotten in the shed. The e-bike will literally be out whatever the weather as well. I think I ride my e-mountain bike in the rain, I ride it in the dry, whatever. It kind of inspires me to get out there rather than, you know, slogging it away on a mountain bike.
I mean, you know, we're really interested in what your thoughts, what your worries are about buying your first e-mountain bike. Chris, I want to touch on maybe compromise as well, which is something for which people might want to think about. What would you say to them about that?
I was saying about the compromises with a normal mountain bike, there's always like, you want those big fat tyres on for when you're smashing those downhill turns or hitting those big jumps, but then you've got those big tyres to ride out to the woods and you don't want big draggy tyres that take, you know, a hell of a energy, you know, yeah, a load of drain on you to get out there, and things like the gearing to go uphill. You want to have that big gear in so you can spin a big gear on the downhill, but you also want that gear to be able to climb up the hill. And, you know, with our standard 1x chain sets and stuff on the mountain bikes, then you've always got that compromise. But the great thing with an e-bike, it doesn't matter what tyres you've got, what gearing you've got, it's always just going to be a load of fun.
Yeah. So there you go. I mean, that's what our thoughts are about, you know, maybe hope that tackles some of your worries and anxieties about buying your first e-mountain bike. But like I said, let us know your thoughts. If you've got any questions, Chris and myself are only too happy to answer them. Time now for the news, and Chris is always someone who's very up to date with current affairs. Chris, what is the news this week?
Well, Steve, something that caught my eye this week on the internet was, well, I know you love your treadmill action. I saw this Loppy Fit bike. I mean, check this out. I know everyone is going fitness mad at the minute, but this is an electric bike with a built-in treadmill. So the idea is that you walk along and it powers a motor instead of pedaling. So that looks like the ultimate workout. What's your thoughts on that one?
Do you know, that's absolutely the most ridiculous, but actually quite funny, funniest thing I've seen for ages, actually. On a more serious note, Chris, did you see that the 55 Nm eZesty has had an update to 2.0? So obviously there's an increased, it seems to be an increased amount of torque, you know, linked to obviously the cadence on that bike. I think that's something we should look into in a little bit more depth in the forthcoming weeks. But again, for those of you guys who are not familiar, the E Zesty is a lightweight system with a 250 watt-hour battery in the down tube. You can remove the down tube protector, take the battery out, and use it as a non-e-bike. So yeah. And what about Cade Edwards? I saw truck rider Cade Edwards is now out on a Powerfly.
Yeah, no, he's out on his Trek rail actually, smashing it, getting, pretty loose on it. I know Cade has been preaching quite a lot of love on Instagram for e-bikes at the minute, as has a lot of other riders out there. So it's good to see him on board and smashing it with his style. So exciting things hopefully coming from Cade. Coming up this week on EMBN, we have got a load of cool content. On Friday, we've got newbie questions coming up. So this, if you're new to the world of e-mountain biking, it can seem quite confusing from the outside, but hopefully we answer all those burning questions you guys have got.
Well, hopefully not burning questions, Chris. Sunday sees the first of a two-parter, the evolution of the e-mountain bike, or the history of the e-mountain bike, if you like, stemming 10 years. So we look at some of the early bikes, the early motors, from such bikes as the 55 Newton meter, 288 watt-hour high bike of 2010. And we talk to some of the key people in the e-mountain bike industry. So be sure to tune into that. It's had some great fun putting that together. And then on Monday, are e-bikes good value? Now that's obviously a subject which we've discussed today on the show. And Chris goes into further depth on that. And that's, lots of good stuff in there, Chris, right?
Yeah, definitely. We're not just talking value as in the monetary term. We're looking at other ways that the e-bike can add value to your life. So be sure to check that one out.
In the comments this week, first of all, I want to tackle one subject which came up on last week's show, which was to do with lightweight e-bikes. And some people seem to think that we weren't into lightweight e-bikes. Well, that's simply not the case. We use all types of e-mountain bike here on EMBN. But turning to Chris's scary moments, fortunately, I've not been part of that, but some people put in some questions regarding it, such as David King, who says he doesn't like heights. I'm with you there, David. So riding along the cliffs and being so close to the edge just to turn away from going over is one that gets me the most. Yeah, I agree with you. And then Like Her 9 says, Top Man Chris, all that stuff looked beyond most of us, which it certainly was, and definitely beyond me. The downhill 64 mile an hour on that terrain took my breath away. Well, the thing is, Chris, you were 1 kilometre an hour away from 100 kilometres an hour, right?
Yeah, 99 kilometres an hour, so it was just under the target. But I think if we rode a 29er, maybe with some different tyres, different wheels on there, we could have achieved that top speed. But yeah, it was pretty scary, and it was the fastest I've been to date on an e-mountain bike. Pretty scary stuff. And
very close to there, John Horner, the scariest has been the climb up the Riscan quarry overlooking Tanagrysiau power station. John, seems you're familiar with that spot. I was brought up there, so I know the area intimately. I hope you went went up around the Moyle Winds. Yes, I mean, North Wales is an incredible area to ride an e-mountain bike. And you're right, John, the Riscan was actually one of our scariest moments.
Right, time for a little bit of Ghetto Tech. This is where we see all those contraptions and devices you made up to do with your e-bike. Well, first up, this is Vince. He's riding a Commensal Metapower Signature out in Saskatoon, Sask in Canada. He's been struggling with his e-bike, lifting it into the work stand, so he's got busy making a pulley system for just $9. Now, this is really cool. It runs 4 pulleys and makes the e-bike weigh about a quarter of the weight when it comes to lifting it. It provides a bit of support once it's into the stand. That is some nice work, loving that.
And obviously Chris knows his contraptions, having built quite a few of them in the past. Saskatoon, that sounds a great place to go, Chris, doesn't it?
That sounds cool.
in Saskatoon. Anyway, let's move on now to Out and About. First up, we have Antti from Hossa out in Lapland. Wow, amazing, isn't it? Amazing where people are ride their e-mountain bikes, sharing the trail with a reindeer. What an amazing shot.
Look at that.
Whoa.
That's cool, isn't it? Meanwhile, Helen, she's been putting the miles in on southern Snowdonia after climbing 1,000 metres on a Kenevo. I mean, look at the views behind her and that blue sky. Looks absolutely epic.
It is epic. It's North Wales. Eric, way up on the hills of Ray in Ireland on his Comcell Matt Power SX says he is lucky to have the steep climb with his restriction zone. That looks like a big climb there in Ireland. And yeah. And what about this from Sasa out in Frankfurt, Chris? Shredding the trails there with his wife on a Canevo Expert, loving the dry trails out in Germany.
Yeah, nice to see loads of ladies out on their e-bikes. It's pretty cool. This is Pete and his mate. They're having a big day out in Ullswater on their Canevos for a big loop around the lakes. We've also got Christian here from South Tyrol in Italy. He's been out for his ride since lockdown on his high bike Esduro All Mountain. And look at that. That snow looks pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
there,
South Tyrol is, e-bike heaven, right? I mean, so too is Spain, where we recently shot. Back in March. Nice sunny trails here being ridden by Jose in Tarifa, Spain. He's on a Focus Sam Squared in 26-degree heat, and trails in perfect shape makes us pretty jealous, I can tell you.
Nice, doesn't it? Meanwhile, Len, he's been taking his new e-mountain bike friend out for a big ride, and they're both now hooked on the sport. They're riding in Queensland, Australia. One is riding the Giant there, and I think that's a Merida E160 in the background. They're out for a big day out on the hills, and that looks absolutely epic. We've got loads of submissions this week, Steve. It's really good to see you guys getting out and about on your e-bikes. If you guys have been out there, make sure you send it in to us using the upload service, and the details of that are up on screen now.
Right, it is Bikefall time, and first of all, I want to give a shout out to Steve Collins, who is quite anxious that his bike is not getting into the bike vault. Steve, apologies, we cannot find your bike. So if you put it again with massive exclamation marks, where is my bike in the bike vault? We will get it into this section of the show. Let's kick off poolside this week with Ed and his pivot shuttle. He's in Southern California, dialing in his suspension. I mean, Chris, come on, super nice, right?
Gotta be straight away. Next up, we've got a bit of exploring going on here with Nick. He's up at Painswick Beacon on their Focus Sam 2 as well. That's a nice shot there, loving that.
Yeah, and Mark is out Bigfoot hunting. Do you remember Bigfoot, Chris? Sasquatch.
I do. There's one around the Forest of Dean, isn't there?
Actually, don't talk about that at the minute. Anyway, he's Bigfoot hunting on his new Norco Bigfoot, E-Fatty. He's in Ontario in Canada. There's
Bigfoot there. I can see him. Look, there on the seat clamps. You see it?
Look, it's a super nice. Richard has been out with his mate for his first e-bike ride in Talabont on Usk. Now there's a Levo. It looks amazing on a ridgeline. Talabont, super nice shot.
Super nice. Nice shot here from Blake with his BMC Trail Fox amp up in Norfolk on the Nar Valley Trail, out for some lockdown exercise. Nice.
Nar Valley, that's classic, isn't it? Classic mountain bike territory.
No Nar, not far. Was the thing
Craig's been discovering things on his doorstep that he never knew existed, like this lake, just 3 kilometres from his house. He's riding a Lapia Overvault up in Aberdeenshire. That's a nice shot. Moving on to a bit of hardtail action here from Martin in Oslo on his Cube Acid 1, looking to stop for a mid-ride dip in the lake, but a bit too cold it seems. Love the sky in the shot. That is super nice.
We've got a little bit more hardtail action. This is Rob out for the spin in the lush weather of Tahiti Bay in New Zealand. He's riding his Giant Fathom E. Nice light, nice shot. Now this is a little bit of a throwback shot here. This is Antti on his Mondraker E Crusher out on the trails of Lapland, enjoying a look back at some epic rides from the 3-day cycling festival. Hoping to get back to days like this soon, aren't we all? That is a nice shot. Right, Steve, I think it's time for the bike of the week, and I think it is Richard sharing the ride with his mate on the epic Ridgeline Trail. I think that's got everything in there, hasn't it? Look at that. It's got to be an epic shot. Nice work, Richard, for that.
Shot of the week. Get involved. Get involved, Chris.
Get involved. Use that upload service, and it might be you in next week's Bike Vault.
That's it for this week. Don't forget to also get involved in the discussion about mountain bike or e-mountain bike. Now, I know we do talk about people's anxieties about e-mountain biking on the show, but actually the whole point is people do seem to have accepted e-mountain bikes, but it's still the decision between a mountain bike or an e-mountain bike which is hanging over people's heads. So get involved in that in the comments down below. And that just leaves me to say thanks for watching. Great Chris to catch up. Great Chris to catch up with you. Great to catch up with you, Chris. I will see you next week.